Yes, welcome in, Jesse. It's game week.
It feels good to hear those words, Zach, because it's been a long 8 months, maybe 9 months.
It's been a long time. It's been a long time. They have not played since late November last fall. One of the longest, probably the longest off season in at least 20 years. So they do have a game this week. They'll play Miami of Ohio coming up on Thursday night. It felt like football earlier today. I mean, waking up to 50-degree weather. I loved it. I know there's some people that are just like, don't wish away summer, but I felt like football this morning, and we have plenty of football to get to today. We are going to talk about the depth chart. We're going to talk about what Luke Fickell said about some of his guys. We'll touch on Miami of Ohio, spend more of the time of that on Wednesday's show. But before we, I should say, we're going to get that. We're going to do a little bit on the recruiting story that we promised last week. And then we had an opportunity to chat with Cole Ryder this morning, the 4-star offensive tackle out of Germantown. Had a fun conversation with him. So that's coming up as well. And then going to finish with some listener questions. Before we get started here, just want to remind anybody that's listening, we do have a YouTube page. It is the Camp YouTube page. Post all of our shows up there. We post interviews up there, post practice video when we're allowed to. So go check it out, subscribe, and get us in a different way if you so choose. Otherwise, obviously, we appreciate you listening. Also, I think that's it. That's all I'm going to push today, unless you have something you wanted to push today. Oh, you actually do have something you want to push today, right? You guys this is a big week for Badger Connect.
Yeah, in conjunction with Wisconsin's first football game of the season, we are making all of our content at Badger Connect free for everybody to view. So I know we're going to be discussing a story on Wisconsin's revamped recruiting department that published today, but everything throughout the week is free. We also opened up our last volleyball story for anybody to read about how staff continuity has helped shape Kelly Sheffield's successful tenure at Wisconsin, because volleyball opens the season on Friday night against Kansas. So if you've been on the fence, maybe you can check it out and the stories will convince you. But if it's not for you, hey, you can still read them for free this week.
Yep. BadgerConnect.com/membership to sign up. A lot of good stuff, and it's been good stuff all summer. It's going to be good stuff all football season as well and moving forward. So go check that out. All right, let's jump into this. Week 1, we got the chance to talk with Luke Fickell this morning, and they put out their first depth chart. You know, again, it's not the coaching staff doing it, but the communications people, and then they send it to Luke Fickell, and I think he only made one change to it. He was a little confused with the oars, like what exactly those were, but it was good to finally see a depth chart. We haven't really put that down to paper here this off season, but a couple of injury things before we get started, right? Jake Renfro, who missed most of the second half of fall camp due to an injury to his knee that looked really bad when it happened, is expected to play. He's practiced the last 5 or 6 days. He's expected to play on Thursday. They do not have any update on Tucker Ashcraft, but we know that that's probably going to be a while before they get him back. And I think that's it, like in terms of injury-wise, right? Just wanted to get it out of the way.
Those were the two biggies that he was specifically asked about. And you're right, no timeline given for Tucker, but we're not going to be seeing him in the opener. And so that's going to adjust some things offensively for Wisconsin.
It will, absolutely. So those were the two injury things. Depth chart-wise, a lot of oars, especially on the defensive side, especially in the front 7. But I think that is probably to be expected considering what we've talked about and how many guys have been rotating in there. But we'll start on the offensive side. We kind of, I don't know if we necessarily predicted it, but just based on what we saw towards the end of fall camp, Chris Brooks gets the nod as the starter opposite Vinny Anthony, which is a minor upset just because of where things started in the spring with Jaden Ballard. But Jaden Ballard listed as a backup there at one of the wide receiver spots.
Offensive coordinator Jeff Grimes said when we talked with him that he thought Chris Brooks Jr. was the best blocking wide receiver that they had. And toward the second half of fall camp, he began to take a lot of those first team reps that Jaden Ballard was occupying in the spring. And we talked about this previously, but Jaden was relatively quiet this preseason. In the spring, I think he made quite a splash. We mentioned late in spring ball, there was a practice where he caught 3 long touchdown bombs from quarterbacks. And whether you want to credit the defense and say they did a good job of taking away the deep ball or not, you're going to be facing some damn good defenses this season. So it's important for you to show out when you get those opportunities. And that doesn't mean he's not going to be a part of the rotation or get those opportunities, but I get the sense the staff felt like Chris Brooks Jr. was a little bit more consistent, has some of that pass catching ability, can block very well, and they could potentially use him in some different roles. But that was notable on the depth chart among some other position groups.
Yeah. So they actually have, again, he's wearing number 1. It may make him look faster. We'll see. I feel like it almost has to, because it's just such a perfect number. But the reason he got that number, and the same reason Jameer Latimer got that number, is because they had really good fall camps. And let's be fair, they had good springs as well. But you get to, if you get a choice, they're going to, you have to perform for those numbers. We saw it actually last year in fall camp, where Joe Griffin was wearing 2 and Tretch Kahuna was 12. And then when the season started, Tretch Kahuna was wearing 2 and Joe Griffin was wearing 12, just because of the fall camp that he had. And he was going to be the guy that played. And obviously Joe Griffin ended up missing the entire season because he wasn't eligible, but they have to earn those numbers. So everyone has certainly focused in on Chris Brooks and him winning that job. But I think he earned it. And certainly I think getting that number perhaps shows it. So that was one aspect of it. Jaden Ballard or Joe Griffin there at one of the wide receiver spots. We know that Joe Griffin, in talking to Jeff Grimes, said he might be our best go up and get it 50-50 type of ball guy. And we saw that several times in fall camp. The other wide receiver spot, Vinny Anthony, DeKel Crowdis, and Eugene Hilton Jr. Those are the 2 guys that are listed behind him. Those are also oars. I think we're going to see Eugene Hilton Jr. more than DeKel Crowdis, but we'll see.
In my mind, there's no way all these dudes can play, but maybe I'm wrong and Jeff Grimes has a plan where you cater to the strengths of your guys and get them a few snaps and see what they can do. That's not the worst thing in the world, especially if each guy has a specific skill set. And I think based on what we've seen in preseason practice, they do. I'm just glad to see Eugene Hilton Jr. listed in some capacity, because he's too good not to play. Very few freshmen make it onto the 2 deep, and I know we will get into that in terms of the number of true freshmen, but Eugene is going to get some reps when the ball is in his area. He makes those catches. How much room is there for the DeKel Crowdises and Joseph Griffin Jr.'s of the world? I don't know. They both did some good things when they got opportunities, but Wisconsin offenses of years past, we always talk about how deep and talented the wide receiver room is. Maybe not always, but in a lot of seasons. And are 7 dudes going to catch the ball? Not necessarily. But at the very least, it speaks to what this group believes they have, where there's some competition and an even playing field when you start getting into those backup spots. And if one of them emerges, then it pushes somebody else down. And I don't think that's the worst thing in the world for the team.
Yeah. And then in the slot, Tretch Kahuna, number 1, Tyrell Henry, number 2. And that's exactly what you would have expected going in. Tyrell Henry, though, another number change for him as he moves from 14 down to 5 down to 3. He's number 3 now. I would assume that has a little bit to do with special teams, simply because Deone Hill is going to play special teams. He's number 5. And then obviously if you were number 5, Tyrell Henry, couldn't be on the field at the same time as Deone Hill. And that moved Carter Smith from number 3 back to number 5. So just one more little change in the numbers before the start of the season. If you had one guy that you needed to catch a pass, like your life depended on it, which of those wide receivers would you trust the most?
I'll go Vinny Anthony. Which of
Really?
these guys? Well,
to catch a pass on air, but it's a deep ball, and you have to like, it's not an easy catch.
I'll still go Vinny Anthony, because I'm looking at that entire list. Which of those guys has proven it the most? I know it's maybe just one season, but that one season was productive for the majority of that year. I think he's got a variety of skill sets. He's got the speed. He's got the catching ability. And a lot of these guys have talent, but I still have question marks. Joe Griffin Jr. did it at Boston College, so it's not like he doesn't have that experience. And Tretch certainly got some catches a year ago, but I'm thinking about reliability. Eugene Hilton Jr. maybe, but again, this is a true freshman. So if my life depended on it, I'll put it on Vinny Anthony.
It's funny you say that, because every time we talked about just throw it in his direction, he'll catch it. What name did you use?
Of course I used Hilton, but I want
All right.
proven performance right now in games. And if Eugene gets that opportunity, I think he will prove it. But we're talking about a dude who, as of now, has 0 college receptions.
Yeah, again, you're just talking about who has the best hands, and that's what I'm looking for in that situation. But you're right. Vinny Anthony has proved it. Eugene Hilton Jr. has an opportunity, you would hope, at some point here this season, and I'm sure he will have plenty of opportunities to prove it. We'll see exactly what that looks like. Other places on the offensive line, on the offense, no real surprises. We know that the top 2 tight ends are going to be Jackson Aker and Lance Mason, and they have a either or, even though they don't play the same position. And then obviously it's Grant Steck and Jackson McGohan behind him. Without Tucker Ashcraft, that group felt pretty easy to figure out. Offensive line is exactly what we thought it would be too, right?
Yeah, you got
with Davis Hines in at left tackle, and then you get Joe Brunner and Renfro and Emerson Mandel and obviously Ryan Malman at right tackle. So that looks exactly as you would expect.
They basically decided that in the second week. It's just that we didn't have the opportunity and the O-line didn't have the opportunity to build that continuity because Renfro was out, which messed up a whole bunch of things at center. But that's why Renfro's health is so important to this line. Other than a couple practices, Emerson Mandel was right there at the right guard spot. You knew Joe Brunner, you knew Jake Renfro, and you knew Riley Malman. Those 3 spots were locked in, and that Davis Heinzen was going to get every opportunity to earn the left tackle job. And we'll see how he handles some of these pass rushers. But for now, that's the group they're rolling with, and that is the group that they basically knew they were going to have from a couple practices in.
Yeah, certainly felt that way. I don't know. Again, injuries may have given Emerson Mandel even more of an opportunity to prove that he was that guy at right guard. But I think that was always what they wanted it to be. Like, Kerry Kidenko is probably their 6th, right? He can play the center spot. He can play both guards. I know Ryan Corey is listed as the backup center, but I think they'd feel comfortable with Kerry Kidenko there as well. But Emerson Mandel is the future, and you wanted that dude, that big dude, to be the guy there, and he is here to start the season. We completely just forgot about the running backs. I didn't forget about them, but we haven't talked about the quarterbacks or the running backs. But Dylan Jones, and then it's Darian Dupree or Cade Yakameli, right? Is that how you took it? I take Dylan Jones as the clear number 1, at least on the depth chart, and the other 2 are the backups.
This is how I would have expected it based on what we saw during camp. And granted, Dylan was dinged up for a little bit, so that gave some other guys opportunities. But he's got some special qualities and that dynamic ability to do multiple things in this offense. So does Darian Dupree. But Cade Yakameli, they've said all along, all 3 of them are going to play. So why wouldn't you include all 3 of them on the depth chart? These first couple games to me will be fascinating to see how they decide to use all 3. And whether they develop some kind of a rhythm and that's what it's going to be moving forward, or whether they're looking at this like a continued competition. And if 1 or 2 of them emerge, then the 3rd guy is sort of out of luck. I don't necessarily know that that's going to be the case. Otherwise, they wouldn't have talked about the group the way that they have. And I thought it was interesting that Luke Fickell said at Monday's news conference, he felt like that group out of all the groups was kind of pushing each other at maybe I don't want to say a higher level, but in terms of the competition there was incredibly strong and maybe the best at any position.
Absolutely. Quarterback, obviously Billy Edwards Jr. starter, but the backup will be Danny O'Neill. And I feel like that was always the way it was kind of trending towards being that way at the NFL camp, him over Hunter Simmons.
0 surprise to me. I think we talked about this. Like, okay, Luke has said it's going to be ongoing into even another week beyond the practices we had a chance to see. But if we had to pick, Danny O'Neill gave them a little bit more upside. It felt like he was more consistent. And then you have the athletic ability that he can provide. And that's not to say Hunter Simmons can't get out of the pocket and make some gains, but I feel like they brought Danny O'Neill here for a reason. The guy had a full year of FBS starting experience. He got those spring practices that Hunter Simmons didn't. And while Hunter pushed him, I don't think they just did that for no reason. They wanted a competition to see who could earn that number 2 job. It felt very clearly like it was trending in that direction for a little while.
So there is that on the offensive side. Anything you want to talk about there, or can we jump to the defense?
I think we're good for the defense.
All right. So on the defensive side, they have 2 defensive lineman positions noted, 4 guys in there: Ben Barton, Parker Peterson, Suggs, and Brandon Lane. Those are your starters. And then Dylan Johnson and Charles Perkins. They have 6 defensive linemen. And then that's not even taking into account the guys that have their hands on the ground quite a bit, which Daryl Peterson and Mason Reiger and Corey Walker are also in the two deep. They have in their front seven 4 different oars there, Jesse.
Yeah. Not surprising at all based on everything we saw, because you have specific situations where you're going to have 2 interior defensive linemen on the field, and then other situations where there's going to be 2 others. And we said we felt like they legitimately have 6 guys who are going to play. I'll be shocked if you don't see those 6 guys get a fair number of snaps in the first game. But look at the weights on those guys. And I know we've discussed it, but 300 plus pounds, basically everybody except Suggs is 299, I think. And what's so crazy is I went back and looked at the roster a year ago, and the top 6 guys, I've said this before, they averaged 295 pounds. 4 of the 6 were under 300 pounds. So it's a drastic difference. And of course, there's a reason why they did that. But Luke talked about this because I asked him about the defense and whether he thought what he's seen this fall was going to lead them to be better. He said, we don't want to overpromise, which I think he acknowledged perhaps the last couple of years they learned from. And he said they have to go out and prove it, but he feels good about the confidence they've been able to develop over the last 30 plus practices and the ability to be more athletic, bigger, and have experience. So they've done all the right things. Now, again, it's time to go prove it.
We talked about this earlier, but Brandon Lane has to be the biggest, not surprised that he's in the 2 deep, but just the biggest surprise of fall camp in terms of his potential impact this year.
Yeah, when I wrote my recap last Monday off all the open practices, I said something to the effect of, I thought he was the most pleasant surprise. And that's largely because of where he came from a year ago, where he just was not a significant factor on the D line. Now, he played a little bit, but I don't think that's why they brought him in as a portal guy, just to play a little bit. And then all of a sudden he makes this big jump where, assuming it's what we've seen, he's going to get a lot of opportunities with Parker Peterson, where those guys together can try and help stop the run and establish the tone there to put you in a situation where it's 3rd and medium and 3rd and long, and you can have some different body types tee off on a quarterback.
Yes. Okay, so I think we know perhaps some of the lineups they're going to be going with on early downs, a lot of big bodies. Pass rushing wise, Mason Ryder and Sebastian Cheeks, Tyrese Fearbury, and then I would expect at some point, and he's not listed in the 2 deep, but I feel like Nick Clayton could be in that group as well, just depending on game situation and that type of thing. But he's not listed there. I know there were a number of people asking, where is he? Where is he? I think it's just a matter of having 6 outside linebackers already in there that perhaps you weren't going to throw a few more in.
Yeah, there's only so many spots, and I would expect him to get at least a handful of opportunities. But let's be fair, there are other guys with more experience, more productivity, more consistent opportunities in practice, and there's only so many to go around. And then when you also factor in, you're looking at the outside linebacker position, well, Corey Walker and Michael Garner are filling those spots, so they don't all do the same things. But if I had to say, who would your top 2 pass rushers be? Again, it depends on body types, but you can use a Sebastian Cheeks and a Mason Ryder together on the field, and I think wreak a little bit of havoc. You're also going to want to use Garner and Walker in those situations. And then I think you do go to Fearbury, and we'll see where Clayton fits in, but I think he did enough to earn at least a handful of opportunities.
Right, and they're also counting some of the off-ball linebacker there as well, because you have Aaron Witt listed among the outside linebackers. Yeah, so they didn't differentiate between that spot. He's just listed as an outside linebacker, second team. So it's difficult because I think they have a bunch of different formations and different ways that you could label guys, and that's just the way the depth chart played out. Inside linebacker, we knew who the top 2 were going to be. We knew Christian Allegro would be up there, and we knew Tacker Curtis would be up there. Behind them, we know Thomas Heiberger, who finally was cleared for full contact about 2 weeks into camp, and is the backup at one spot. And then it's the exciting pair of Cooper Catalano and Mason Posa, or at the other spot. Redis said Cooper Catalano or Mason Posa at the other spot.
You asked Luke about those guys, and glowing reviews of both of them said that they're going to have a role this season and not just special teams, though that is going to be factored into this. Cooper's been amazing since he got here. all the tackles consistently around the ball. And as Luke said, that's why he's the state of Wisconsin's all-time leading tackler for high school football. Mason Posa is just kind of a freak of nature and a force. And I think just to put himself in this position while missing winter workouts, spring ball, all that stuff, because he wanted to win a 4th straight state wrestling title in New Mexico, speaks to his athleticism, tenacity, and what his ceiling can be. Now, how many reps will there be for Mason? It's unclear because Luke admitted, and I think we've seen this between the two, Cooper is in a closer position or in a better spot to earn those snaps, and how many will be left. But it does say something that you've got both those guys listed in some capacity in the 2 deep and 5 true freshmen overall.
Yeah, I think it just speaks that there's going to be some kind of role for him at some point. And it won't be just special teams. So we'll see exactly what that looks like for both those guys. I would imagine right now, if you had to guess, neither one redshirts, right?
I wouldn't think so. I wouldn't think so.
They both used their 4 games plus.
Because you've got to win now and you've got to use the best players. And also, if you think they're going to be a part of your special teams units, then make them a part of your special teams units so they can get that experience. I don't think in college football where we're at now, it makes a whole lot of sense unless you really feel like I don't yet know. I need to evaluate 4 games to see whether we're going to use it. If you think he's ready, he's ready. And you have to go into a season with that mindset. So I will be surprised if both those guys don't redshirt.
Yeah.
Or redshirt.
Or redshirt. Yeah.
Surprised if they redshirt.
Yeah, exactly. At corner, we knew that was a position battle during fall camp between Emilio Agard and Donnie Hill, starting opposite Ricardo Hallman, and that is one of those ors with the on the defensive side of the ball with the starting unit. It's Emilio Agard or Donnie Hill. We know both those guys are going to play.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll be interested to see what the breakdown of snaps looks like. If it's 50-50, one of them has to start, but they're both going to play a fair amount. How deep will they go beyond that? I'm very curious. Are you going to take Ricardo Hallman off the field if he's fully healthy? It doesn't feel like you're going to take Jameer Latimer off the field if it's a close game. And then you're dealing with guys like a Kairos Gaines, who I think certainly will have an opportunity to play. You've got a couple other true freshmen, but I think it'll be fairly even between Hill and Agard unless one of them is just emerging as a lockdown guy.
Let's be fair about it. The depth there is concerning.
Yes.
Just because of how young it is. And we've heard that from Mike Tressel going back to spring and certainly to start fall camp, that he likes the depth, but there's no Big Ten depth, right? It's no guys that have actually played in Big Ten football. So the depth is certainly a concern. I guess maybe this is where I should throw in the Nigel Forkering update. He was in court on Friday. There was a motion to dismiss in front of the judge, and also the injunction that they were hoping for, Nizier's side, the NCAA was hoping to dismiss. The judge said no to the dismissal, though, only on part of it. And Nizier's people have I think until September 15th to respond to that. The more important aspect of this is the injunction. The judge gave the NCAA until Friday to determine or to respond to some of his questions about that, and then perhaps ruling. What that means is, unless the NCAA comes back and responds today or tomorrow, and the judge wants to turn it around really quickly, which feels very unlikely, Nigel Forkering will not play this week. And that's unfortunate for him. But again, that's one game gone, and we'll see. You would expect that a ruling on that injunction would come before next Saturday, but I guess we'll see how that plays out. But he will not be on the field on Thursday night against Miami of Ohio. The safety spot, exactly what we thought it would be. The top 4 being Austin Brown, Preston Zachman, Matthew Young, and Matthew Traynor.
Yeah. So I've said that I thought that was probably the strongest position group, and those 4 are the reason why. And all 4 of them I would expect to play because of what they did in camp.
Yeah. So special teams wise, the one area that we were questioning, because we just didn't know how that battle was going to play out, was the kicking spot. And though it says or on the depth chart, Nathaniel Vakos is going to get the first opportunity on Thursday and is going to be the kicker for Wisconsin to open up the season.
Yep. Luke was specifically asked about it, and that's what he had to say. And no surprise, as far as I'm concerned. I didn't feel like he did anything to lose the job. I know we mentioned there was a kick, 52-yarder that he missed, but I thought he was tremendously consistent, and so was Gavin Long. But if you've got guys that are at an equal level, the guy who's been doing it for a while is probably ultimately going to have that role, and Gavin Long can handle kickoffs, and we'll see what happens. I've said this before, but I feel as though it means there's going to be a shorter leash. And if you start to have some struggles, you have a guy that you feel like can go in right now and take that role.
Yep. It's either or on the kickoff, but I would assume it'd be Vakos. You don't want to look, they want to try and redshirt one of them, right? You would think.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose that'll also be like another interesting thing to follow, because Lam has handled it. But if you can get another year out of somebody, having a guy with that much experience is important.
Yep. Long snapper Nick Levy, as obviously we talked a lot about throughout fall camp, right?
Of course.
No? Okay.
Usually our lead topic, isn't it? How's the long snapper doing?
Yeah. I will note that Atticus Bertrams is the starting holder, but the number 2 holder is Matt Young, the safety. So just notable on that front. Punt returner Tyrell Henry is the number 1. Tretch Kekatu the number 2. Kick returner, apparently they are not going to be returning kicks this year because there's no kick returner listed there. But I would assume Vinny Anthony would be the guy, but I guess we'll see once the season starts. Or do you think they're just going to fair catch everything?
Maybe they just want to start the ball to 25 and they don't want to turn it over. No, perhaps an oversight, but I would expect Vinny Anthony to occupy that role based on what we've seen. And I know the Matt Young might come as a surprise to some, but Matt Mitchell did talk about he's got a bit of a soft spot for some of those D3 guys and guys who have played at lower levels. And if you can do the job, you can do the job. And maybe you bring another dynamic to the table. I don't know. We'll see.
I think the dynamic is in Atticus Bertrams. Did you see his carry last year?
I did. Yeah.
That's not dynamic enough for you?
Very dynamic, unplanned on all fronts, but sometimes it works out.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. All right, so that was the depth chart. I think we broke it down well enough. Let's move on to the new recruiting structure within Wisconsin, as they have had to adjust. I will say that with people coming and going, you had an opportunity to break that down on badgerconnect.com. You can find that story for free, as we pushed earlier in the show. But Pat Lambert is overseeing everything, but there's no Max there. There's no Pat and Max, no Max and Pat, even though they were pretty much inseparable once they got to Madison. But obviously with Max no longer here, it's Pat's taken over as the guy, and it's his thing, and overseeing a bunch of new faces.
Yeah, it's a much different structure from when Max and Pat first arrived here as 2 of Luke Fickell's first hires. And they did great work, I think. I don't know how you can deny it from a talent standpoint. The first 2 full classes, where you've got 2 top 30 classes, 18 24/7 sports composite 4-star prospects, and most of those guys are still here. That's kind of the nature of the transfer portal. But what I think is so interesting is how much they've expanded and how much they've changed this offseason. And yeah, part of it is you lose Max Steinecker, a dynamic recruiter, to USC. They brought in Ethan Russo, who has a big role in this recruiting department and holds the same title as Max. But you've also got the addition of the revenue share structure, which is not something Wisconsin or any other school had to deal with 2.5 years ago when the staff came. So you've hired Marcus Sedberry to be the GM. And Ethan Russo's role, again, while the title is the same as what Max held, he's really involved in the film breakdown. That is his strength. He'll still talk to recruits, but he's going to be evaluating film. He's going to be kind of the liaison between the recruiting department and Sedberry to determine the structure of the salary cap in terms of how much these players are worth. And one of the differences they're putting out is he will be evaluating the offseason, the spring, but especially in season, each game, giving grades to guys. And all of that will form whatever value it is they determine for these players when they get to the offseason and they present them with contracts, or they're trying to figure out what the structure will look like, because now you have $20.5 million that Wisconsin can directly pay athletes across all sports. The majority of that money will go to football. So I thought that was notable. And the reason this department has expanded from what was 5 when it first started under Fickell to 10 is the inclusion of assistant director of player personnel. They've got a number of those guys. And another difference in structure is how these guys are directly responsible for specific positions. So when Max and Pat got here, they were basically splitting responsibilities. handling multiple positions. And Casey Roebuck was kind of the third guy doing O-line, D-line, and quarterbacks of all positions. Well, now Ethan Russo, he does quarterbacks and works specifically with Kenny Guyton, but you've got 3 other assistant DPPs who handle specific roles. One with the front 7, one Isaiah Green May handling guys in the secondary. He's a former Badgers outside linebacker. You've got Jared Thompson, who's the college scouting coordinator, working with O-line. So they all handle their own board. And all of this is in an effort to put Wisconsin in the best situation moving forward. And I know people may be listening to this and thinking, well, what about the 2026 class? And I felt that was certainly worth acknowledging in the story. And I asked Pat Lambert specifically about it. I don't think that that is where they want to be, right? They're 60th in the country. They have 14 total commits. It is worth saying that this was always going to be a little bit of a smaller class just based on where they were, and that can impact rankings, but only 2 of those guys are 4-star prospects. And so I do think some of this turnover didn't help, but you have to go out and win these recruiting battles. And I think 2027 is going to be vital to the success, certainly long-term for the program, but to show that this staff is doing the right things to get the right types of players. We know how much in-state talent there is. So they're doing everything they can behind the scenes to expand and figure out roles that make more sense. And this is the other thing I would say. They also added somebody whose role is basically a salary cap manager. Now, he's not specifically in the recruiting department, but that's part of this process too. And again, these roles just didn't exist a few years ago.
When you look at the grand structure of it, where do you think it will benefit them the most? Like just having all these different people coming together. What is the outcome of this? Where do they grow from here?
Well, I would say it's hard to deny the results that Max and Pat had. I would also say that maybe you have a little less on your plate individually because you have more people. So look, if Ethan Russo is specifically responsible for quarterbacks, in addition to some of those other things, maybe there's a better dynamic where you can just monitor one position, or one guy's only in charge of 2 positions instead of how they had it before. All the salary cap stuff is super important because now you have to place a value on these guys. And it's not just retention too. It's also figuring out what the cap structure would be for a high school recruit and a transfer portal guy. And I also think that's one of the challenges moving forward, not unique to Wisconsin, but as Pat was saying, you don't know what numbers are real when you're trying to figure out you want to get new guys and they're saying I was offered X. Is that really true? And that's how you have to determine it. But I just think if you have more people, you can divide responsibilities in a way that is maybe less on each person's plate. And the hope will be that you win those recruiting battles. Because that's another thing that Pat said, like, yes, we scout players and we evaluate them, but we're not just a scouting department. We are a recruiting department, and we can put a board together. But at the end of the day, you have to have the personalities, you have to have the relationship building ability and be creative and unique in how you recruit these guys to get them. So he doesn't want to lose sight of that fact. And I think that's why they had success early, and they've got to be able to recapture that. Not winning doesn't help, but they've got to find the other avenues, and they feel like they're excited about this new offense where they have something to sell and they can maybe explain why it didn't work before and get people in the fold moving forward.
Yeah, that's the toughest thing I think in recruiting, just because everything changes so quickly. Phil Longo, everyone was high as high could be. Not everyone, I should say, but a lot of people were very high on what that could mean, and all the potential blue chip wide receivers and tight ends, or more so wide receivers that you could bring in to play in this offense, and the quarterbacks were going to love it. And it turns out you needed a blue chip quarterback to be able to run that offense, and getting a blue chip quarterback not always easy at a place like Wisconsin. That said, the turnover has to be extremely difficult for them as well, right? Like just the faces coming and going in terms of that department and the coaching staff itself. You just don't know what is going to be here next year. But I feel like that's how everybody is operating at this point. I will say the benefit of that 27 class is the in-state talent that is here. And if you could close on a few of the kids, and we obviously talked to Coors Loken last week, and you're going to hear from Cole Ryder here in a second, there is a ton of talent, and if you can close on some of it, it would help out that class significantly. I'm not speaking. That seems pretty obvious, right? If you could somehow lock down that group, it helps you a base to build that entire class.
Very much so. And again, another question I asked Pat, but you need people who are fired up about this program and maybe have an innate understanding of it. That stuff matters. And it's even harder to capture now But you also don't have a year that comes along like 2027 every year where there's more than a half dozen guys. And I know Wisconsin has only offered, I say only, but 6 so far. There are going to be probably a couple more. If you can get those people and get people excited, especially the 4-star prospects like a Cole Ryder and a Coors Loken, that matters a lot. And I will say, there have probably been some gripes among the fan base about how Wisconsin has recruited or not recruited the state, and is worth acknowledging they have had 7 24/7 sports composite players from this state in the last few classes, and Wisconsin hasn't gotten any of them for a variety of reasons. That doesn't mean they've de-emphasized in-state recruiting. I would argue that they're going even harder now at 2027. And Pat has a list. I put this in the story on the board of all the in-state guys, and I think it's fuel for him and for this department to try and go get those players, because they still want to be regional. They want to recruit Chicagoland, and they especially want to recruit Wisconsin when those players are good fits and have that talent. So absolutely, 2027 and how the Badgers recruit in the state will be critical.
I have to imagine, at least on some level, some of the comments from the number one kid in the 26 class is having there as well, right?
Very much so. I can guarantee you that that is something that is being factored in. And for those of you who don't know, I wrote this at my previous position, but Gavin Meyer, the number one in-state player in 2026, who's a 3-star offensive lineman committed to rival Minnesota, and then essentially said, I had to take into consideration what Wisconsin would look like a year from now and whether the staff would still be there, and stability and continuity, all that stuff, whether that's true or not, or it's coming from a certain head coach at Minnesota. He put that out into the ether, and it's something that I know this staff is looking at and saying, how can we make sure this doesn't happen again?
Absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of names we don't mention on this show, right? We don't mention the coach. We don't mention the coach. We don't mention the previous workplace. It's a lot of, those are, I like that. We're building that. I like that. But people know what we're talking about, which is great. So, all right. Anything else you wanted to talk about recruiting wise before we moved on to Cole Ryder?
No, I would just say the 2026 class is certainly not finished. I know I mentioned they've got 14 so far, but there's at least 4 spots that I think you'll see them looking into. Safety, I think corner, edge, and then wouldn't be surprised if they try and add another offensive lineman. But this time of year is really important because high school football has started, and a lot of this is going to come down to fall evaluation on some of these guys, maybe late bloomers, maybe trying to flip someone from another school, because they still want to be a high school recruiting program. It's not going to be 23 in this class. It might end up being 18, but there's still more work to do.
There is, and they've obviously got to keep their own guys in as well. And one of those guys is quarterback Ryan Hopkins out of California, who was on national TV on Saturday and was playing for Mater Dei, the number one team in the country, and was a little slow to get going, but he's obviously a really nice athlete, and he gets to throw to 5-star wide receivers. So Chris Henry Jr., some of those passes were right on the money. Other times, that dude just makes everybody look amazing. And I'm just thinking about Chris Henry Jr. and Jeremiah Smith being in the same, like being on the field together next year. It seems unfair. It seems a little unfair what Ohio State does all the time. But either way, Wisconsin certainly chasing after a number of guys in 2027, including offensive tackle Cole Reiter out of Germantown. We caught up with him earlier today. And we do welcome in a special guest. It is Germantown tackle Cole Ryder. Cole, how's it going?
It's going really good, man.
Appreciate you jumping on. Class of 2027, Germantown, 4-star recruit here, and Wisconsin obviously in heavy pursuit of you. But before we get to any of that, I wanted to get you to tell us who you are as a player. Like, if someone asks you, what type of player are you, how would you respond?
Yeah, the type of player I am. I feel like I'm like, at least as an offensive lineman, I feel like I'm a pretty athletic offensive lineman, and I feel like I'm a really aggressive offensive lineman too, because I feel like I'm really good at finishing my blocks, and I feel like with the athleticism part, I feel like I can move downfield easily. I can get to second level pretty fast, and I can get outside of defenders pretty fast. That's pretty aggressive and athletic is what I'd call my game.
You get to play defensive line in high school too, correct?
Yeah, I do. They put me out there on goal line defense and like whenever they need me, because we don't have a ton of D linemen, and I kind of played D line my whole life, so it's just been like kind of second nature to me. So yeah, they put me out there and they need me.
Is there anything that you like better about defense than offense?
I mean, just like I feel like you get more recognition on defense, right? Like I feel like if you make a tackle, your name gets called. I feel like that's pretty cool. Like if you get a sack, I mean, everyone's rooting for you. That's the biggest thing I like about it.
Well, it's funny you say that because obviously, like offensive lineman, you only get really know offensive lineman's name if they make a mistake. That's pretty much how it is, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much all of it. It's like they only see you if a dude goes around you and tackles the quarterback, pretty much. But I mean, it's offensive line's rewarding too. Once you like put someone in the ground, that's rewarding too.
Cole, you've had a lot of interest from a number of different schools. I assume everyone is looking at you as a tackle. Do they say everyone pretty unanimous in how they view you?
Yeah, I feel like everyone yeah views me as a tackle. I feel like I kind of surpassed the guard height range. So yeah, I feel like yeah, every school wants me for tackle right now. Yeah.
When you're having conversations with Wisconsin, what are they like? And obviously, there's so many different names involved. Your position coach, certainly with AJ Blazik, but what are those conversations like with Wisconsin?
Yeah, the conversations are always great. I feel like I learn something new every single time I get on the phone with any of the coaches. The conversations are basically like, because my, former teammate Cooper Catalano goes there. So it's like, when you're going to come home and play with your brother Coop. So it's just like, they're really good conversations. They talk about, normally when I get on the phone with Blas after a game, he'll talk about, how I played. And then he'll talk about, when you're coming back and all that stuff. And then Coach Grimes, whenever I get on the phone with him, he'll talk about how the season is going. So all the calls are great.
Have you talked to Cooper much about his transition and his experience at Wisconsin?
Yeah, I have a lot. It's like it's kind of been cool talking to him through this whole process of him, going there as a young kid, and then now him growing through the depth chart and actually probably going to see the field this year for sure. And he might burn his red shirt, which I mean is something I knew Coop was gonna be great, right? But just now seeing him actually prove everyone right and showing that he can be the player he is, it's really cool to see.
He's been amazing, has he
Yeah,
not,
he
Jesse? Like
has.
he's been amazing. I mean, he's a guy that just jumps off every practice, and then you know Germantown, big school, but like just for him to jump in here and really kind of hit the ground running has been impressive. When you talk about Coach Grimes, Jeff Grimes, the offensive coordinator, does it appeal to you that he's got such a offensive line heavy background?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's really cool to have an offensive coordinator that kind of sees the game and the field through you, like with the position you play. So I think it's actually great having him because he's more understanding. I feel like if the O lineman has a question, the O lineman doesn't understand the scheme or something, I feel like it'd be awesome to have an offensive coordinator that understands the position you're in.
Is the staff talking about the history and tradition of O-line play at Wisconsin, or is it something you're just kind of familiar with as someone from the state who happens to play O-line? And does that factor into your thought process here?
I mean, yeah, for sure. The staff definitely mentions a lot about the rich history in it, but of course, me, coming from Wisconsin, I know a lot of the greats that come out of there. Like for starters, like Joe Thomas, of course, I know about. So yeah, but Wisconsin, they like to show me the rich history in O line, which I think it's a good factor, right? Because I want to go somewhere that produces good offensive linemen to the NFL. So I feel like that's a good factor.
When you're looking for a school or when you're trying, whenever this decision comes down, what are you looking for as an offensive lineman outside of just someone that's going to, try and, help you grow into an NFL lineman?
Probably I'm looking for just like, coaches I feel like I can talk to, right? The coaches I can talk to, not about football, a place that I feel like I can live. One of the best advice I've heard in recruiting is find somewhere where you can go if football wasn't in the option. So I want to find some place that feels like home. So those are probably the biggest places, just a place that feels like home to me.
Can you take us through your visit schedule this off season and where you ended up going?
Yeah, so for this upcoming off season,
This past one that you just wrapped up, the summer circuit and the spring practices. I'm sure you went a lot of different places, but where exactly did you go?
yeah, so for camps, I went to one camp this summer. I went to Ohio State. And then for the spring practices, I went to I think two or three Wisconsin practices. One of the spring practices was with my leadership team. So we bring the leadership group to a Badgers practice every year. And then I went to a Northwestern practice. I went to a Minnesota practice. I went to, oh my God, I'm blanking here right now. I think that I went to a Kansas one. I went to, and I think that might be it. I didn't go to a ton of spring practices this spring because I play AAU basketball, so it's kind of hard fitting it in there. But I think those are the places I went to.
So when you're looking ahead now to this upcoming season, and obviously your season got started last Friday, but the college football season gets going for Wisconsin this week, and for most of the Big Ten teams this week. Where are you headed this fall?
So for the games that I'm going to 5 Wisconsin games. I'm going to Michigan State game. I'm going to an Ohio State game. I'm going to Minnesota game. I'm going to Indiana game. I went to a Kansas game. Um, yeah, and I think and I'm going to an Iowa game. I kind of have a packed schedule.
I was going to say you're going to be at a game every single weekend. It sounds like.
Yeah, basically.
Might need you as a correspondent. We'll just bring you in. You can talk about what you saw every week because you're going to be all over the place.
Yeah, pretty much.
Cole, it's not often that Ohio State comes into Wisconsin and offers kids, obviously the best kids in the state. That's an opportunity. What did that kind of offer mean to you? And have you developed much of a relationship with the staff there?
Yeah, I mean, of course, the offer, the feeling was great, right? You get offered by the returning national champions, right? So it feels good to have that, and then the relationship with the coaches. I've gotten to know the O line staff. I've gotten to know the O line staff, but I haven't gotten to know like the whole staff quite yet. I feel like maybe I'll get to know them more once I go to a game there or two. But yeah, I feel like the best relationship I have is with the O line staff there.
Well, we're a Wisconsin podcast, so I'm going to ask about Wisconsin. The Ohio State thing, but no, I'm kidding, Jesse. The for Wisconsin, what stands out about them, and where are you at when you're thinking about trying to make a decision here at some point?
Yeah, of course, Wisconsin is always going to be a top choice, right? I grew up a Badger fan. It'd be just, a dream come true having the state root for you. I mean, what also sticks out about Wisconsin is just like, of course, what you're saying, the heritage of linemen that they have, the development of linemen they've had in the past, which I think is a good factor, right? You want to go somewhere where they can develop linemen. I also think the area is nice with I like the feel of the area, right? And the coaches are great. And then, I mean, probably at Wisconsin, yeah, they're probably one of my top schools right now to decide from.
How many times have you visited Madison as a recruit?
Yeah, it's been a lot. I feel like I've been there. God, I must have went to. I think I missed like 1 or 2 home games last year, my sophomore year, and I went up there like 3 times during the. I went up there like 3 times during the winter, and then another 3 times in the spring. I think I'm like might be over 10 times I've been there. It's been a lot. Yeah, I've been there a lot.
Gets to Madison a lot. Is there anything
Yeah.
that sticks out about Madison that you like? Obviously, you're coming to see games, but do you have a chance to experience the campus as well?
Yeah, the campus is great. I feel like it gets crazy there during game days, right? Like the college students are crazy. I mean, yeah, it's a really cool game days are insane there, I feel like. You just drive they have us park in a high school, and I mean you can drive through there and you see college kids, you know, pounding stuff on this stuff. I think it's a really cool I feel like it's a really great campus to have that's what kind of sticks out to me is how crazy the fans are there. I think it's a great college atmosphere.
You're part of an exceptional in-state 2027 recruiting class. We had a chance to talk to Coors Logan last week.
Mhm.
Have you had an opportunity to meet a lot of these guys, and do you ever talk with them about potentially getting together and playing somewhere just because of how much talent is concentrated in the state?
Yeah, I've talked to Coors a lot, and I've talked to a couple other kids. I've talked to Isaac Miller. I've talked to the Hamilton twins, Ethan McIntosh. I mean, we all have the kind of the same thing with the stuff that's going on right now. Like, yeah, we could see ourselves potentially playing together, obviously, right? But I think that now this year, I think we're gonna probably hammer that home more and actually talk about that with each other.
It would be pretty special, right, to be able to have a home state just filled with all the talent from the state, because there is just so much talent here.
Yeah. That'd be awesome, right? Because I mean, you look at how many, I mean, even offensive linemen in our state have Division I offers, right? It's like eight. I feel like we have a ton of talent, and if that'd be awesome if we all we all stayed home, obviously.
When did you know you could compete at a Division I level? Did you start getting offers freshman year, or is there a game or a moment when you realized this type of opportunity would be available for you?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, so my freshman year, I actually started on the D line for half the season. And then due to an injury, I was gonna probably start my probably at the end of the year though. But I mean, an injury made me go in even earlier, right? So I got in there, and I mean, I was just like I was big, right? But I wasn't as big as I was now. I was about 6'6", 260, which is still big. But like, I got in there, and I mean, it's just like I've been an old lineman at heart, but I mean, just getting in there in varsity, like just getting the feel for it. I knew I was gonna be, I knew I was gonna be good. Just after that first game, I was like, yeah, this is for me.
For you, timeline wise, when are you looking to make a decision? Are you going to take all your official visits? Are you going to go through this entire process, or do you have an earlier timeline than that?
So that's tough, right? Because I mean, I feel like everybody wants to take their official visits and see the colleges, but for me, I kind of like look to Cooper on when he gives me advice on when I should commit or not, and I feel like the best decision for me is I'd love to make my decision by basketball season, like during basketball season, my junior year. And then, I mean, of course, if something pops up and I don't do that, I mean, obviously something could happen, but dream world, I'd commit during basketball season.
You mentioned you play an AAU ball. You must be a serious hooper to continue this process. Did you ever consider basketball as an option in college?
I mean, kind of and kind of not. Like I've always been like a big dude, so basketball's just me been like, or like throwing the skinny kids on the ground, which is like why I love AAU. And AAU keeps me in shape. So that's kind of why I do it. But yeah, I mean, for a little bit, like when I was a kid and stuff, I was like, I'm taller than everyone. Maybe I have a shot at playing college basketball. So for a little bit of time until I started like, you know what? I'm 6'4", 250 in eighth grade. I might be a football player. So
How
yeah, yeah.
how does that help your game, you think, on the football field?
I mean, I feel like it helps a lot, right? Like I'm able to play both ways because I have enough endurance, and I feel like without basketball, I wouldn't have this much endurance. So I feel like the basketball aspect of it helps my footwork, helps me able to like jump high. Which I mean, that kind of helps in football. And then the side to side movement is good, like cutting off people, and then just like yeah, the endurance part I mentioned, it helps a lot. Yeah.
You mentioned you were 6'4", 250 in eighth grade. What, 6'6" as a freshman? What's your height and weight now?
Right now, I'm about 6'7", 300 and probably 5 or more pounds. I think I'm like 6'7", 307. I weighed it at the other day.
How much more weight can you put on? Are they trying to, or is it something like, hey, what's this? This feels good right now where you're at.
Yeah, I mean the way I judge my weight on is, of course, I want to put healthy weight on, right? So when I work and when I've been lifting and working out and I've been putting on good weight, that's good. But like how I call the weight I want to put on is like no gut weight, right? I don't want to add to my gut with putting on the weight, which I feel like I've been doing pretty good at. So like I'll add weight naturally, but I don't want to add bad weight. But I feel like I can add a couple more pounds, get to 310, 315.
If you're
Wouldn't
if
be
you're looking,
bad.
I was gonna say, if you're looking for a bad weight, I can help you out with that one.
When when you're that big, it's easy sometimes probably to dominate at the high school level. Is there anybody who's given you trouble during your high school career? Are there any types of players that at least make you think?
Yeah, well, right now, obviously, it's been good after my first game, but I can last year a couple a couple good D linemen gave me some trouble, but it wasn't like the worst I've ever gone against. Of course, at like camps I've gone against really good kids, but last year there was two teams I think that it was tough to go against.
Got anything else, Jesse?
No, I think you
All right.
covered it. Cole.
All right. Hey, Cole, really appreciate your time. Good luck the rest of the season. We look forward to talking to you down the line as you get closer to your decision.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on.
All right, there he was. Really appreciate Cole Ryder's time, and he's a really good player. They took one on the on the nose a little bit, having to play Homestead in the first week, but he is really good, and it's interesting what kind of an impact perhaps Cooper Catalano could have on him.
Very much so. Obviously, as Cole said, they talk frequently, and you can see why it's important to follow a path like that. And I do think there's something to be said for this pipeline of in-state players, because I remember talking to Cooper when he was committing to Wisconsin. Well, he had talked to Landon Gothier the year before, another in-state linebacker, about what you do when you commit, enrolling early, all those things. So it's a good guy to lean on, because Cooper's obviously going to have positive things to say about Wisconsin at this point. And I don't think there's any denying that Wisconsin is in a good position with Cole. You just never know. But when you visited Wisconsin 10 plus times and have 5 game day visits, what more can you do as a program than to get someone on campus that many times? What more you can do is close. But for now, good spot.
That's insane though. Like it's not even just the 5 visits. It's all the other visits he's taken too. He's going to be gone every single weekend. It feels like that's a absolutely packed schedule for him. But as you said, he wants to get it done before basketball season. So you got to pack all these ones in. And basketball season, starts in November. And, maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. But that would be a huge, obviously, get for Wisconsin if they're able to do that. And him and Cors Loken would be really a good 1-2 punch to go along with some of these other guys that are in this class. And the fact that they would, potentially start talking about seriously staying together and staying here and playing for Wisconsin would be significant. Wisconsin needs to land some of those guys. I think that's pretty evident, and everyone knows that. I don't know that we need to probably dive too deep into that. Makes sense. All right, let's jump into some listener questions to finish off the show today. Jack says, what needs to happen on Thursday for us to have confidence in the team when the schedule gets tougher? And I believe he's saying us as in fans. So, but for you, Jesse, as a guy that covers the team, what do you need to see to have confidence that this team is better than it has been the last 2 years?
I will be blunt. Total ass kicking. I mean, seriously, the last 2 years, the opener was not decided into the second half, and Wisconsin ultimately pulled away in both of those. But you're sitting there going, wait a minute, is this what it's going to look like the rest of the season? And the answer was yes. Now, having injured quarterbacks, everything else, we know what the story was. But if you say you're going to change and be old school Wisconsin, then go out there, punch them in the mouth, and just not relent and win handily in a way that makes people believe something is actually different. I mean, you can change the style of offense, but if you go out there and it's 17-13 in the third quarter, people are going to be looking around going, what? And maybe Miami, Ohio ends up being a way better team. Certainly DeQuan Finn presents a lot of problems, but still go out there and kick some ass in these first 2 weeks and give some people optimism.
I like that. That's very blunt, and I like it from you. Luke says Thursday's coming out player will be, and you can say Dylan Jones, but that's low hanging fruit.
I wish I had a magic 8 ball and I'd be a millionaire in Vegas. I guess I will go. I want to go someone on offense, but yeah, you go first.
Lance Mason, right? Okay. A guy who is going to get some opportunities on Thursday night. It has to be a guy that we haven't seen before, right? Or maybe like a really young guy, so like a Dylan Jones. We've seen a little bit of him, but that'd be too easy. And Darian Dupree would be too easy. And I don't know exactly how young they're going to play at wide receiver. It could be Eugene Hilton Jr., but I'm going to pick a guy that we haven't seen before, a guy that they need quite a bit from this year, and that's Lance Mason, the tight end, the transfer from Missouri State. I will go him for my breakout player on Thursday night.
I'll go Mason Reiger. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities on the edge with a guy as athletic as Finn. And if whatever we saw in fall carries over, then they've got something that they didn't have a year ago. So since you went offense, I'll go defense.
Feels like they have a lot of Masons on this team, both last names and first names. All right. Matt threw this to me, I think it was last week or week before, but he says, I haven't heard much about play calling. I'm assuming they're huddling this year and taking advantage of the in-helmet communication. If so, have you seen evidence of huddling reducing pre-snap penalties in practice?
I don't feel like I saw a ton of penalties. On the other hand, it's hard to know because they didn't do a bunch of full-on move the ball. Like they have the play clock going, but I feel like that area will be better. The structure of the offense feels disciplined in a way that will allow them to make fewer mistakes. But yeah, it'll be a little bit more methodical. That doesn't mean there are not going to be traces of what we saw before where they kind of spread some things out. I do like, though, the direction that they're headed.
What kind of impact do you think having as much motion and as much change before the snap, are you a little concerned about that in terms of penalties?
Not yet.
There's so much stuff going on before the snap.
Not yet. I feel like obviously they repped it a ton, but like it's not the kind of thing that you just implement once in a while to throw the defense off. That is the base structure of their offense, where every play they're doing a bunch of things to set that up for the future. And so, yeah, it creates a little more of a challenge for the offense, but I feel as though they've repped it enough to be in a good position. Time will tell, though. When the bullets are flying in the games, if it's a problem, then you realize, well, are you going to be able to clean that up 5 days from now when you have another game? We'll see.
Another one of the questions that I didn't get to before, but Chris, I'm now going back and looking for some of these questions that were thrown my way. He's curious how the running back's looking in pass blocking. He said he thinks Cade has a big leg up there and it's needed if the Badgers want to remain multiple.
Yeah, I'd say, I mean, am I an evaluator of pass blocking? No, but Cade would strike me as the one that you'd probably feel the most confident in. I mean, I think certainly that's new for a guy like Darian. I don't know how much pass blocking you have to do in high school, especially the way they lined him up. But I've seen examples where each guy was able to hold his own in those kinds of situations. And again, if those, especially Darian and Dylan, are going to be in there as much as we believe, then you've got to be able to excel in that area as well. Yeah,
you have to be able to be trustworthy back there. That's, I think, is paramount. And maybe they trust Cade more than the young guys. We'll see. The one-on-ones are always a little difficult. We saw Cade stonewall a few guys, saw other guys get run over, but it's all have a great snap one time and have a tough one the next. That's just the way it is in those practice situations. He also is asking about the short yardage plays. How do they look in short yardage, Jesse?
I think you'll see more fullback action. You may even see the fullback get the ball. I mean, hey, there's a novel idea, fullback dive. I feel like it worked 98% of the time when Paul Christ was here, and maybe that's slightly exaggerated, but they know what to do. I mean, I talked about this before, but I remember talking to the Joe Thomas and like Barry Alvarez after the USC game when there was another 4th-and-1 situation. And Barry had mentioned this earlier in the week, but he's like, here's what I would have done. I would have gone under center. You know what Wisconsin used to be. And so I think that you'll see more of that in short yardage situations.
So we saw a ton of fullback dives both in spring and in fall camp. I would expect that to be a staple of their short yardage. We saw in the spring showcase a bunch of times, right? Jackson Aker, I think, scored a touchdown on one of those. I wonder if they might be able to use Gideon Atuka in those situations as well. But remains to be seen. Just to find a way to get him on the field. And he's got the body type for that role for sure. All right. That is going to do it for the show today. Unless you have anything you want to add.
I think we covered it, but let's do another one this week, just in case.
We will. We will be back on Wednesday. We get the chance to talk to the players tomorrow. We'll be back on Wednesday to look ahead to Miami of Ohio on Thursday night, including talking a little bit more about that dynamic threat that the Red Hawks have in the backfield in Daquan Finn, who Wisconsin is well aware of, as they at least evaluated him on some level last offseason before deciding on Tyler Van Dyke and him ending up at Baylor. But we'll talk about that Wednesday. Jesse, thank you very much.
Thanks, Zach.
All right, there he is. Jesse Temple from Badger Connect. You've been listening to The Camp.